Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. It's great to have you back on the channel. This show is being recorded on Saturday, the 25th of October, 2025, and then posted to all media channels on Sunday, October 26th, 2025. As always, these shows are provided for entertainment purposes only. All the information I share with you comes real time through my guides, angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history, so for entertainment purposes only. Also, if you just remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all those things help the channel. If you're new to these shows, we actually gather questions for these shows from our YouTube homepage under the post section. We put out a request for questions every week on Mondays. And we had 800 questions again this week, a little over 800. My wife then goes through them, does a construct of a group of questions she feels are representative. For this show, I think we have 73 questions in the countdown. So I go through them with you real time here. Happy to get together every weekend here with everybody and really appreciate all the great support and thoughtful questions that we all receive each week. Really shows a lot of care, concern, and wanting to kind of move everything forward as we're all trying to do with the purpose of this channel. Kind of move everybody forward in a good space and with knowledge and information. So, on that note, let's begin today's show with the countdown number 73. Do you see any new technical advances coming that we have not heard of to date? I do see actually within about 1 year here, we're going to have some new handheld devices that will actually be very, very good at determining or diagnosing cancer in the body. In fact, all over the body. So there's going to be a big development here, and these handheld devices will have a back-end connection to artificial intelligence. So this is going to be like a big breakthrough, kind of early cancer detection, early screening. 72, Sterling and team, what can you say about the anonymous donation to fund the military recently announced? Is this for real, and how did this come about? I get this is a misleading quote in the media, and actually the money was like diverted from other federal government sources like social programs. So I'm not getting that this is real information, that it was an anonymous like billionaire source. It was like a diversion of funds in the federal government from social programs. 71, will Venezuela and Colombia retaliate against 45 for demolishing several ships? I don't see direct military action, but I do see what looks like, some kind of economic sanctions, something having to do with financial, economic, tariff sorts of things, but not a military retaliation. 70. My mother and I heard a rumor about Rachel Maddow, Jimmy Kimmel, and Stephen Colbert starting a news outlet dedicated to real journalism and truth. When I looked into it further, it looked like a hoax, but we both felt this was the truth. Would you please ask your team if something like this will happen in the near future? I think whoever asked this question, you're referring to some rumors that were started actually in September of this year, September 2025. I do see a brand new news network being launched beginning of 2026, funded by a billionaire, actually a couple of different billionaires here, a new news network that will have an abundance of people involved in it, not just the three people mentioned in this question. Also, I think they'll have some involvement, but it's a larger scope here. So yeah, there is a new news network coming here. I'm also getting they're going to utilize artificial intelligence to do real-time fact checking, and that's going to be displayed on the screen. There's going to be kind of a new way to kind of present the news. That's the early part of 2026. 69. Will Arizona's lawsuit force Mike Johnson to swear in Representative Grijalva, I think it is, into the House of Representatives? It will, yeah. It's going to speed up the process. So I know that I think they're out of session right now, but looks like the lawsuit is going to speed up the process. It's going to happen before long here. I don't know if they're all coming back in beginning of November, but I don't know. I see an acceleration to the process here based on the lawsuit. 68. I was wondering if once we transition to the other side, we ever miss having human sensations like being able to feel the wind in our hair, sipping a cold drink, watching a sunrise, sunset, etc. It's all available on the other side in many other dimensions, including heaven, tenfold. So what you experience here, you can experience almost like tenfold on the other side. Sensations are much more realistic. So it's not actually a lack of sensation. It's actually increased level of experience. 67, Steve Bannon says that 45 will have a third term. Will he in fact have a third term? No, the Constitution will eventually prevent that from ever taking place, but I also see that 45 will be long gone before that's ever even a question. Okay? 66, the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, PEOC, is under the east wing of the White House. 45 is tearing down the east wing so he can reinforce the bunker which is below it. Is this being done so that he has a fortress to prevent him from being removed from power? Yeah, 45 believes this will be the case, that he can reinforce or create a larger bunker system. I get this is normal policy for the government, is to have kind of a really adequate bunker system to protect Congress, the president, the administration in the event of kind of a major attack. But I don't perceive that this is ever really going to help him. He's not going to be around long enough. It's actually not going to help him being removed from power, if that's kind of the general gist of the question being asked here. Bunker will be built, but not going to help in terms of preventing 45 or allow him to stay in power. No. 65. Hello, Sterling and team. Will 45 actually win his legal case against the Department of Justice, the DOJ, for $240 million? If so, does that come from taxpayer money if he wins the lawsuit? I see that whatever happens with this court case, they're going to grant him or award him the money, but it'll never be paid. So not even a concern as to where the money's supposed to come from. I don't see that he'll ever get paid. It gets stopped by other successive lawsuits that come after it. So he gets awarded the money, but he never receives it. 64. Do you see the SAVE Act being passed by the Senate? If passed, it would end mail-in voting and require birth certificates, but married women with a name change would require even more stringent proof, such as a passport. I see it's eventually going to be passed by the Senate, but then retracted by late 2026. So maybe almost in time for the elections that occur in late 2026. So the Senate will pass, I think the House already passed it, the SAVE Act. The Senate will pass it, they're telling me, and then it'll get retracted before we get to the end of 2026. 63, will the U.S. ever move away from this extreme tipping culture and begin to pay people fairly for their job and services rather than relying on the consumer to bring an employee's wages up? I lived in Australia for 1 year, and it is so freeing to see just the price listed, and that is what you pay. I understand people will always want to tip for great service in certain establishments, but we have reached an exhaustive level where it is basically asked everywhere you go, and will this be rolled out into some form into governmental policy, like adding a 30% additional surcharge to the price of goods and services? I do see that within about 4 to 5 years here, this will be rolled into standard culture, but driven by tax policies. It's almost like the federal government will say, we're going to tax you based on extra revenue, or like the price of what the tipping would be will be buried in the price of goods. That'll generate more revenue. There's more taxable income there for establishment owners. The bad news is that it's going to run up the prices for consumers. It'll effectively raise revenue for establishment owners, but the money's not going to trickle down to like servers or the people that need it. But I see a lot of this being driven 4 to 5 years by like new tax codes that kind of force establishment owners to raise prices. So unfortunately, it's going to get buried into like a one price for all for consumers, but it won't benefit the people that really need it. Okay. 62, when we bring antiques or inherited items into our home, do we bring in any negative energy with them? If yes, how do we protect our home from that? So, all objects, everything that we carry or touch or bring into the home, everything has residual energy on it. Think of it as like, biological material, dust, bits of skin particle. Everything has an energy to it, attached to it. So much in the same way you might use like a disinfectant spray. It's not a bad idea to sage things. Sage is a form of aromatherapy. It actually, cleanses objects. But yes, you can bring objects into a home that energetically have been in environments that have been highly negative or dangerous. Yes, yeah, that you can do that. Absolutely. So good ways to kind of, cleanse them. 61, Michael Wolff is suing Melania in response to her $1 billion defamation lawsuit or threats, or the threats of the lawsuit over the Epstein statements. What will come of this? I do see that Michael Wolff will be successful. It's going to take several years here for this to play out, but he'll be successful in the end analysis again in this lawsuit against this 1 million or this $1 billion threat of a defamation lawsuit from Melania. Yeah, I do see Michael Wolff is going to be successful in this kind of counter lawsuit here. 60, I'm seeing more and more posts about digital IDs, which would give the government a way to control individuals to things like healthcare, banking funds, etc. Are these just scare tactics, or is this something we should all be concerned about and opt out by limiting our digital footprint? Are there any concerns? Eventually, digital IDs will be available and part of society worldwide. So if you look within about a decade, maybe a little bit longer, digital IDs will be a function of society. Now, I always say the horse is already out of the barn. All the things that maybe people are concerned about digital IDs, the government attaching your bank accounts for IRS or tax, they can already do that. Limiting health care, limiting insurance access. Government can actually already do all that. What's going to happen in the long run here, say even 1 to 2 decades, I don't want to scare anybody, you can opt out, but people will have digital barcodes or even little embedded, like almost like RFID devices, let's say, in their finger. And that will end up being your digital ID, and it'll be very common in society. So it's coming. But the threats that people are concerned about right now, the government can effectively already do those kinds of things. So it's kind of this is coming. There'll be a certain period of time people can opt out, but it's coming. 59, does the toothpaste water additive fluoride calcify the pineal gland? Right, making it hard to awaken spiritually. No, not necessarily. That particular gland is responsible, I'm not a doctor, but it's responsible for making you feel well and happy and relaxed. So all those things contribute towards being able to connect with your guides and angels clearly, right? Think about if you're highly stressed or emotional or angry, very difficult to connect with the spiritual realm. Right. So it's not, I'm not a doctor. There are certain chemicals you take in the body that can affect certain glands, but all the focus on that particular gland and say stopping your spirituality, no, no effect, really is no truth to that assertion directly. 58, hi Sterling, you sometimes talk about souls experiencing the pain they cause others during their life reviews. What about gossip? It is not spoken to a person's face, so does it get overlooked during the life reviews? No. Everything we experience, we put out there. All the thoughts, all the suggestions, all the things we say or don't say or think, they create energetic waves that go out that affect everybody around us. And so, life reviews, remember, are all about elevation of the soul, learning from your experience. So gossip is not excluded. It actually is an important part because it has a lot to do with someone's emotional state, their mental state, their logical state as they're going through life. So it does play a factor, yes. 57, the 45 administration is taking extraordinary steps to control elections going forward. They are quietly embedding prominent election deniers in key federal state election protection agencies. Republicans are also taking control of local election boards, aggressively purging people from voter rolls, removing drop boxes, and generally using every voter suppression tactic possible. Along with the aggressive gerrymandering we're seeing, how is it possible for Democrats to win in 2026 even without actual physical tampering of the machines? I see a number of independent firms getting involved in uncovering malware in voting machines and doing side electronic audits using blockchain technology, that's distributed ledger technology. But I see that there's some other factors coming into play here, funded by some billionaires and independent research organizations. They're going to cross check the elections in a way they haven't been cross checked in the past. So there's kind of a technology auditing bent coming in here with also the ability to uncover malware that's going to help put elections on a much more even playing field. Okay. 56. Chess grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, it looks like, died suddenly at the age of 29 recently. How did he die? Not a doctor, but I see this was a stroke or a blood clot caused by a COVID variant. So, not a doctor. There are hundreds of COVID variants out there, but it looks like there's some sort of a clotting situation that created a stroke. And so it's kind of a very rapid exit. Remember, you never exit from the planet if it's not your time. But I'm getting this is stroke related to like one of the variants in a clotting situation. 55, is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, planning a war against the United States? No, they're not planning a war that would create a larger civil war, but they're doing a lot to create diversion or separation of the population, right? Trying to put the population against each other. But I don't see them creating a war or a large civil war, no. 54, will farmers regain any of their lost markets after 45 is out of office? I do get one of the largest markets, which is China, will come back to farmers. That's the question here by about mid to end of 2026. About mid it's going to start. So I see China coming back as a very large market, as well as some other worldwide markets, but we're going to get out into the middle of 2026 before kind of all these changes take effect. 53, will the robust showing at the No Kings marches around the country have a material effect in disempowering the corrupt regime currently in place? It's one of many factors, important factors, that are bringing the truth to light about the way the population feels about the current administration. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say it has like 25% effect, which is not bad. Lots of other things going on, right? 25th Amendment, treason, all sorts of other things going on, as well as like a crashing of the economy. I don't want to scare anybody, but there's economic factors coming into play here. They'll also materially have a big effect on kind of replacing the administration. But yes, the No Kings March, if I had to put a factor on it, a good 25% of the overall equation of pushing kind of the right ideas and getting the right individuals in place. Okay. 52, the attendance for the No Kings March has been estimated at 5 to 7 million people. They got this number by the number of registered attendees. I know many people showed up that did not register. What do your guys say about the real number? I get the real number was over 20 million, quite large. So a number of factors above what's being projected here, at least 3x times. So over 20 million, what I'm getting. 51, hi Sterling, is there anyone in government helping behind the scenes to stop the madness? Yes, and a lot of them are names you've already seen in the press. I'm not calling anybody directly, but even like Liz Cheney helping, and there's other individuals. There's actually a lot of people behind the scenes that don't understand what's going on. It's not in the press or the media, but it's all going to come to fruition as all this comes to light. Okay. 50. I understand from your previous information that Ukraine is going to be fine once the war is completely finished. But what does the future for Russia look like? Is it going to fall apart into smaller states? No, I don't see Russia subdividing into smaller groups or sections or segments. No, it'll stay, it'll sustain. It's actually going to get revenue and support from many other oligarchs around the world. So it's still going to be around. It's not going anywhere. I do not see it dividing. No. Okay, 49 in the countdown. Will the six enablers or accomplices on the Supreme Court be tried for their crimes? I see there are cases that are going to come against them, but they're going to exit for other reasons. They'll say it's for personal reasons. So they're saying, will they be tried for their crimes? There'll be cases brought against them, but for some reason they're going to drag out and not provide, let's say, the kind of satisfaction that maybe some people think that will come from that. But I do see the cases or the legal crimes that have gone on will actually force a lot of them to exit very quickly, and they'll say it's for personal reasons. 48. Why did 45 pardon George Santos? He needs his support down the road. And I feel there's like an exchange here that Santos has some critical information on 45, and 45 is trying to buy loyalty. So this is like an exchange, like in a thieves' den, so to speak. It's an honor amongst criminals. It's like, honoring buying loyalty. 47. When the Democrats take over the House and Senate in 2026, will the government have a third impeachment trial after 45 threatened a judge in California after she blocked firings of federal workers? I don't see a third impeachment trial for that reason, but I see a third impeachment trial for many other reasons, including treason. So, no, it's not because of this interaction with the court judge or this case, but it's for other reasons. 46. Many U.S. immigration detention centers are privately owned and operated for-profit companies. As of January 2025, 86% of individuals in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, custody were in facilities run by these private entities. Will the terrible acts in the immigration detention centers nationwide be exposed, and will many of the individual facilities be shut down? I see an overabundance of civil cases coming forward, but I don't see these private facilities shutting down. I see them getting funded by other outside sources, so they're going to continue operation. But I do see a lot of civil lawsuits going back and forth, and many of them will be won by the plaintiffs. 45. As someone who suffers from narcolepsy, what can you tell me about the future of treatment and a cure? I get like within 8 years, there's going to be genetic engineering technology that will actually address this very specifically. I believe scientists already identified the gene that's responsible for this, not a doctor. But it looks like within 8 years, there's going to be like a good medication on the market, genetically engineered, that will help with this condition. 44. One night when I was in my early 20s, I was out with friends. I saw a woman who was staring at me. And when our eyes locked, I envisioned her as a snake and very dangerous. The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I knew to stay away from her. That was 40 years ago. I can't remember ever having such a visual reaction to another person. Can your team tell me if this person was a reptilian in human form or something else that I reacted to and I wasn't sure what she was? Not a reptilian, but this was an image that was actually relayed to you from your guides and angels, almost for protection, for a warning. So, guides and angels can put an overlay image on things in life to kind of warn you, to give you a heads up. So this particular person was not a reptilian, no. 43, will Democrats win the House and Senate in 2026? I do see this is going to be the case by a small margin. So I do see this is going to be the case. 42, Amazon says its systems are back online again after connectivity issues persisted Monday of last week. But reports of problems with Amazon's cloud computing services unit, AWS, Amazon Web Services, continue. Several popular websites and apps, including Snapchat, Facebook, and Fortnite, were impacted. Banks and cryptocurrency exchanges Coinbase and AI firm Perplexity also report issues, as did U.S. Airlines, Delta, and United. Was this a malware test run by an offshore entity? And do you see this happening again anytime soon? I get this was like a failure of a backup system related to DNS or domain name servers. It looks like there's like a backup system that failed and redundancy and then kind of a domino effect. So I don't get this was like an offshore malware attack, but I get, this is like a technology issue inherent within the system, within the data centers. Now, are we going to have problems like this going in the future? Yes, right. So as more and more things move to the cloud and we're really reliant on major data centers, yes, technology is going to have problems. But I'm not getting this as an offshore malware attack. 41. Hi, Sterling. Is mediumship a part of our life path, or is it something that can be acquired over time? So, mediumship, or the ability to communicate clearly with the other side, to be an intermediary with the other side, everybody has, see, varying skill levels. You think about in terms of like any kind of an artist, or let's say musician. Some people have some music ability, some are virtuoso. You come into life with a varying skill level. You can certainly improve that skill level, but by and large, if somebody's doing it for thousands of people, as opposed to somebody who can do it for themselves or their family members, you're really coming to life with that kind of a skill level already built in as a baseline. So you can improve those skills, but remember, your life path, your life blueprint involves a lot of factors. So if you come in, for example, with large scale mediumship ability, you're expected to use it when you're down here. It's not just, for party tricks, so to speak. Okay. 40. Will the release of Virginia Guffrey's book this week accelerate the release of the Epstein files? I don't see the release was this past week, right? On the 21st, I think, October 21st. I see it's going to accelerate a lot of the information, more information coming out on individuals. Yeah, so I think that it will accelerate. Yes, it will accelerate a lot of the information coming out. Remember, I always see the major portion of the Epstein list information being released by offshore sources. It's not going to come domestically here at the U.S. Although there'll be some releases in the U.S., majority is going to come from offshore sources. 39. I used to have precognitive dreams and would immediately forget them until they actually happened and the event took place in real life. Since I could never stop these events from taking place, what was the purpose of these precognitive experiences? You were tapping into the Akashic records, right? The record of everything in the universe, past, present, future. So that's like putting your toe in the water. You can never stop major events. That's important. So precognition, being able to see events before they happen. A lot of times they can be warnings or ability to help you prepare. You can never stop major events. But in your case, whoever asked this question, that was your guides and angels showing you can tap into the Akashic records and you should develop that skill and utilize it to help people around you in a larger way. 38. Will there be a tsunami along the North American West Coast in the next 5 years? If so, which areas will be affected and how far inland will it go? I see the entire coastline of the whole western US up through Canada and down is going to be affected by a tsunami. Now, these are through large tectonic plate shifts in the ocean. It'll come in anywhere from 1 to 2 miles. There's going to be plenty of warnings. So people have an ability there'll be some precursors with some earthquakes. There'll be some warnings put out there. But yes, there'll be some tsunamis. Yes, tsunami activity and 1 to 2 miles coming in coast. So it's not 2 miles everywhere. Sometimes it's half a mile. Sometimes it's a mile, depending on where up and down the western seaboard, if you will, the tectonic plate shifts occur offshore that create those tsunamis. 37, a well-known medical intuitive claims genetic engineering is bad for humanity. He says that most health issues are caused by viruses and toxins in the environment and not genes that mutate. Is there any truth in the belief that genetic engineering technologies like CRISPR are harmful and that most health conditions are actually caused by toxins or pathogens? Can we recover from certain health conditions by detoxing or replenishing microbes and with no need to use genetic engineering technology? Well, CRISPR engineering technology is already here, delivered. It's actually on the life path of humanity and the Akashic records, delivered by a lot of extraterrestrial groups. Genetic engineering is something that a lot of extraterrestrial groups already use, right, to sustain life, to increase life expectancy, to get through certain conditions. So, according to my team, the millions of entities I communicate with on the other side, CRISPR technology, genetic engineering is part of the path of humanity. And no, not everything is caused by toxins in the environment. So it's part of the evolution of humanity, and it's here. 36. Since extraterrestrials have been around for millions of years, I'm curious what they think about conservation of species efforts for plants and animals. Do they see it as a worthwhile task, or do they see extinction as a natural process that we should fight? Do ETs practice conservation on their planets? In the universe, there's no such thing as extinction. And let me repeat that. In the universe as a whole, no such thing as extinction. Remember, everything that's here on Earth was brought here, even like the woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth still exists in other galaxies, other planets. So, conservation is a concept not necessarily practiced by extraterrestrials. They certainly guard against, what would be extinction, but they protect their environments. And everything that we see down here exists elsewhere in the universe as well. So they don't really focus on conservation per se. They have a healthy respect for all living species and entities. So it comes from that perspective. So I think they understand why humanity is trying to save what's here. They fully respect that. Anything that they feel is lost needs to come back, like the woolly mammoth, will be brought back, just for an example. 35, there are stories coming out about the ceasefire agreement collapsing in the Middle East. The news stories are saying the Israeli military will continue to strike Gaza. Will the ceasefire hold up? Will the Qatari government speak up about their extensive efforts, participation in the ceasefire agreement that 45 is claiming he accomplished on his own? The answers are yes and yes. The ceasefire leading to a peace agreement is going to sustain. Yes, there'll be some bumps in the road. I get it, and I'm just giving that as kind of an overall term. There's going to be some areas where the ceasefire doesn't hold up. By and large, it will. We're starting to move towards a peace agreement where the world is starting to move towards a two-state solution for the area. And yes, the Qatari government has already been vocal and will be more vocal about the role they continue to play and have played in kind of bringing this all together. Remember, my team had predicted this a year ago or more, that Qatari government would really step in and be kind of the aggressive partner to try to bring all this together. 34. Will there be a time where we'll be able to communicate telepathically with anyone, regardless of their associated spoken language? Yes, many individuals can already do this right now on the planet. So, the element, or call it the scientific skill of telepathy, already exists. That's why there are psychic mediums. That's why there's animal communication. And yes, we're going to get to a place where telepathic communication, as the veil gets very thin, will be very easy for everybody, and communication will be extremely easy. If you think about it in terms of, let's say, communicating with animals, animals exist worldwide, right? Around all different languages, but you can communicate with them directly, regardless of, say, where they're living. So in that way, telepathy will cross-communicate in a way that defies specific language. Yes, it's all coming. It's part of the veil getting thinner. By the year 2050, many individuals, the majority of individuals on the planet, will have psychic mediumship ability, be able to understand other dimensions, and telepathic communications will be quite straightforward. 33, hi Sterling. In 2019, 2020, my mother was very sick and being cared for in a skilled nursing facility with frequent hospital visits. During this time, she was describing seeing what I can only describe as levels Some dismal with sick people, bodies on the floor, tall white beings and others, laughing children and others. Was this just an effort of her, an effect of her sickness and delusions, or was her spirit traveling to different heavenly dimensions during that time that her body was so weak? Yeah, this is all part of an astral travel experience. You can see other dimensions as the soul disconnects. Now, you can have an astral travel experience even when you look like you're awake, right? That's all part of kind of the ability to move out. That's tangentially connected, even like remote viewing. But you can actually see other dimensions, certainly as people get more ill and they have kind of one foot on the other side, you can see other dimensions much easier. So your mother was experiencing other dimensions around her, and that include interdimensional beings like tall whites, because I think you mentioned in here, I think you said, yeah, tall white beings. Those actually were extraterrestrials. 32, one Republican now controls a huge chunk of U.S. election infrastructure. Former GOP operative Scott Leondecker just bought Dominion Voting Systems, giving him ownership of voting systems used in 27 states. Election experts don't know what to think. How will our votes be safeguarded now? Again, I see that there's going to be some independent efforts here funded by billionaires using artificial intelligence technology and blockchain technology to cross correlate audit data. And so there's going to be kind of a very massive effort to bring about a truth in voting overall. So it's going to kind of come around a bit independently, like independent audits or, cross-checking of populations and votes. But, AI technology, blockchain technology is going to be a very powerful tool in cross-checking what's going on here. It's going to be much more difficult to cheat outright. Okay. 31, the jewelry taken from the museum in Paris is estimated to be worth 88 million euros, $102 million, according to a French prosecutor. As the search continues for the stolen treasures, will we retrieve what was stolen from the Paris Museum? I get by the end of this year, almost 80% of it will be recovered. Yeah, 80% of it. And it looks like it's going to be found in a location not tied to somebody. So I don't know if somebody like reports this anonymously and says, go to this location, it's all there. Because it looks like whatever was stolen, whoever has it can't move it, right? They can't somehow cross-sell it. Looks like the majority of it's coming back by the end of this year. 30. The blood reference quantum for successors to Hawaiian homestead leases was lowered from 50% to 25% in 1982, but the blood quantum levels for new applicants for homesteads remains at 50%. Hawaiian legislation has been proposed to further reduce blood quantum requirements. Will the Department of Hawaiian Homestead lower the blood quantum specification requirement from 50% to 25% anytime soon? I get by the end of next year, 2026, that this blood quantum level reference will be lowered to like 25%. I don't see it being lowered more than that. Maybe people have proposed lowering it to like 5% or 10%, but looks like it's going to get lowered to 25% by the end of 2026. So maybe something in process from now up through then. 29, you have mentioned that ETs communicate telepathically, but I'm curious if they use facial expressions or gestures with their limbs and bodies like humans do. If they have a friendly ET, if they are a friendly ET, would humans recognize a smile or a wave hello? Yes, they actually use body gestures. So waving, pointing, there's a lot of body gestures that go on. Not a lot of smiling, I wouldn't say that. But there are body gestures for them to say, come here, go there, pointing. There's a lot of that going on. Humorously, we put some film footage in the intro and outro of last Sunday's show of a number of extraterrestrials being kind of assaulted or confronted by police. But they're waving their hands in the air. Yeah, so body gestures, actually humans do, as a matter of fact, understand body gestures coming from extraterrestrials. 28, is it possible that stars will stop being born in the universe? No, this is not the case because the universe is expanding through infinity. The universe is constantly expanding as we speak. Stars are born all of the time. So, yes, it's not going to continue stopping. And I think that's really the real question here. The universe continues to expand all the time, and it is infinite. 27. The Pennsylvania billionaire Jeff Yass is trying to flip the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and buy the Pennsylvania Supreme Court by using an extensive misinformation mailing campaign. Will he be successful and be able to flip the Pennsylvania Supreme Court? I don't see this misinformation mailing campaign is going to be successful in the end. I feel it's a real big concerted effort. I get it. But I'm getting in the end, it's not going to be able to flip the court because they're trying to flip it from being, let's say, more Democratic to more Republican or something here, or more make it more conservative. It does not look like this misinformation campaign will be successful in the end. 26. The paper craft industry, that's scrapbooking and card making and other hobby industries, are dying. As tariffs take over, China steals designs. Many designers, smaller stores are going out of business. Do you see a revival anytime soon of this smaller cottage industry effort? Not a revival. Let's put it this way. It's going to move much more to digital platforms. So it's almost like think about being able to maybe create something in an analog space. You're creating a paper product or a design, but you might use digital tools to do it. And then you might use other technologies like augmented reality so that you could take, let's say, a paper card, and if you aim an iPhone at it, you could make a dancing frog or a fairy on the card. So there's an evolution coming here, I'm seeing, for the paper craft industry. It's going to evolve. And so everybody should welcome that in. There's actually new ways or new technology to be brought in here. You still have kind of a paper craft industry, but it's going to take on some enhancements here. 25. Since our lives are primarily planned out in advance according to our life path blueprint, do we all eventually end up at the same destination, heaven, and reunite with the one source, the one force? Well, yes, we all evolve through each lifetime, but we're never at any time not connected to the one source, the one force. We're all part of the one source, the one force. I always say, think about it as like drops of water in the ocean. We're all unique individual drops of water, but you put it all together, it's the ocean in its entirety. So you actually already are connected to the one source, the one force right now. Don't have to wait till you get to the other side. So we don't all end up at the same place. No, what you accomplish right through your life path has a lot to do with your soul energetic level and what you're doing to help humanity or help every lifetime you're here. So you don't all end up in the same level in heaven, but we're all part of the one source, the one force always. 24, will we get stronger leadership in the Democratic Party anytime soon? The old guard has a stranglehold on effective speakers, on the effective speakers. You know, I get both parties are going to go through some major leadership changes here over the next 1 to 2 years, both parties. So there's a whole new guard coming in of fresh talent on both sides of the equation, both sides. And the answer is yes. 23, is there a beautifully satisfying experience in a non-physical realm where we leave our human form? What can replace the amazing feeling of joy, composing music, traveling, connecting with people, hiking, sitting on a white sand beach, all the other sensational things that nature has to offer? What oasis on the other side that can match this awesome human life experience? This is like a little bit of a tag along to an earlier question on the show. But, you know, in many areas, it can be as much as 100-fold a better experience on the other side. I always tell people, take a quick look at the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Look at the front half of the movie. Very representative of the way you can experience the other side of the dimension. And that movie was channeled. Don't worry about the back half of the movie. A lot of creative license there with, purgatory and those kinds of things. Not true. But yeah, you can experience everything you want to experience. If you think it, you create it on the other side. 22, will there ever be a vaccine for the Epstein-Barr virus that triggers non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and has been linked to MS, which I guess is multiple sclerosis? I do get not a doctor, but I do get within 12 years here, there's going to be a genetically engineered EBV, Epstein-Barr virus vaccine available that's going to help with all of this. It's going to take so a little bit longer. Some of the genetically engineered vaccines are coming within a few years here. This is more like a 12 years out, but it's actually going to be very effective at controlling a lot of forms of cancer, is what I'm getting. And autoimmune diseases. Again, not a doctor, but they just threw and they said autoimmune diseases. 21, every time I drive for an extended trip, I call my angels and guides to protect me, my vehicle and other vehicles and animals around me, and request my car be wrapped in a protective bubble of light. Recently, a deer appeared right in front of my moving vehicle. It seemed like my car was stopped. It was still in motion, and the deer crossed in front of me in slow motion without ever being hurt. What happened? This is a great example of how birth angels step in to help you. We all have birth angel or angels, plural, assigned to us. Their job is to keep you out of peril, death, even near-death experiences if that's not in your life path. But yeah, this is a great example of birth angels stepping in to help when it's necessary. 20. Last week, you referenced this time in human history as the birth of a nation and the world all over again, so turbulence is to be expected around any significant change element. Will the U.S. society be even more disrupted than now, and do we have a turbulent time ahead until the 2050 reset? Will the ET full disclosure mitigate some of the difficulty adjusting society to these different modes? Yes, so we're going to go through turbulent time. That's all part of the yin and the yang of the universe. It's a refining fire. Yes, it's a rebirth of a nation. People are standing up, fighting for what's right. Yes, there's more turbulence coming. Does that mean a loss of massive amounts of people off the planet? No. There's some report that massive people will, leave. There'll be a massive sunspot, a massive solar flare, 3 days of darkness. No, no, no. Yeah, will there be solar flares? Yes. But yes, there'll be more turbulent times coming. We'll all navigate through them. And it's all part of a refining fire. But this is a rebirth of a nation, just the way it was like in the early 1700s. Yeah, right around 1776. 19, do the number of lives we live determine the level in heaven? Can we know what level we were before coming to our current life? Yeah, so, levels in heaven and any other dimension reference the development of the soul. It's your soul development. It's your complete soul DNA. We call it levels, but energetically, when you get to the other side, you just feel either you rise up or you don't rise up, kind of a thing. We call it levels. That's kind of an analog term here on Earth, but it's kind of how the extent that your soul has been developed and what you're capable of doing on the other side, right? So you think about the angelic realm, which is very high. You could do a lot of things on the other side to help many souls, even help souls cross over. Really, you're not going to be able to reference what level you're on before you came down, but you certainly understand it when you get to the other side. 18, is there a strategic plan by the current 45 administration, Republicans, to extend funding through a continuing resolution until the end of September and potentially stage another government shutdown to influence the midterm elections? I do see a continuing resolution coming. I even feel it's being talked about now. Right now, actually, they're asking here to extend until the end of September. Oh, September 2026. I'm sorry. Yeah, there are some CRs coming. I do see that. And I feel one's being talked about right now. And I do see a number of CRs coming. So it looks like, they'll keep kicking the can down the road. So the answer is yes. I see a CR coming, but I see multiple CRs as even to get all the way out into the end of 2026. 17, hello, Sterling. I recently had 2 aunts pass away and the family never got real answers to their cause of deaths. I have always thought they were linked. When we finally pass over to the other side, do we get the answers we couldn't find in life? Yeah, all answers in the universe are available to you once you cross over. You actually have full access to the Akashic records once you pass over. Yeah, it's actually never really that important. I'm just hearing from my team saying it's never really that important when you get to the other side how you crossed. It's actually very important to people here on Earth. When you get to the other side, it's just almost like walking through a doorway. You're not really concerned about how you walk through the doorway, you're already on the other side. But it is important to people here on Earth, but you actually have the answers. Whatever you desire, those answers are available. 16 here. Will there ever be a time where the US's form of government doesn't have a president? Maybe a spokesperson for the party in charge, but not an elected president. I do see for the next 100 years, the US, for example, will always have a president and kind of these equal branches of government that are supposed to counterbalance each other. A lot of amendments coming to the Constitution that will create better balance. But I do see there'll always be a functioning, there will be a functional president. Now, as you go several decades out, many world governments will be aligned with the Galactic Federation. That's like the United Nations of all extraterrestrial species that has existed for millions of years. There'll be alignment with the Galactic Federation with world governments, but I still see a functioning president, for example, in the US for at least the next 100 years, but counterbalanced by other branches of government. 15. Is it true that the reason all the generals were brought together recently was to have artificial intelligence scan images of them for future use? Primarily, I see some AI technology was used, but primarily the reason for bringing them together was to gauge loyalty to a dictator. So that's really one of the primary reasons for bringing them together. 14, do you receive your communication from your team as a whisper of thought in your ear or something else? I've talked about this in other shows. I actually see that full scale apparitions. So now it takes a little bit more energy to do that. If I back off the energy or the amount of energy I'm putting towards communicating, then I fall back like listening. I'm hearing the group talk as a whole or individuals talking. But if I put more focused energy into it, I easily see apparitions of people like sitting around a conference table. So that makes it kind of interesting sometimes. It makes it easier to communicate what I'm seeing. Is this an angel communicating? Is this a person from history communicating? Is this a guide? Is this somebody from somebody's family communicating? I do see full scale apparitions all the time, always have. And decades ago, when I first started using this gift, I tell the story. I remember walking to a bank. It was a Bank of America. There were like 12 people in line, but I saw like 3 times as many people around all these other people in line standing around them, a full scale apparition. So right away I said, oh, okay, well, those are people moving with those people. They're family members or guides or angels. You could see them. So normally I see full scale apparitions and I hear them talking just like we're talking right now. So that's kind of always been the case. It's kind of how it works. 13. Hello, Sterling. For reference, I am a highly educated professional. Several tests over the years have confirmed I have a fairly high IQ. I was also admitted to Mensa. However, I continue to make stupid mistakes at work and in my personal life. While I understand that some mistakes are normal and unavoidable, I believe that the types of mistakes I've been making are the ones that anyone with a high IQ should not be making. I assume, or should I say hoping, that this is not unique to just me. Why is there such a disconnect between IQ and basic mistakes? So high IQ has nothing to do with emotional intelligence or unique ability or practical or pragmatic skills. So they're all quite separate, but you'll see that people talk about left brain, right brain kind of usage. But these are disparate concepts. And so high IQ has nothing to do with emotional IQ or pragmatic IQ or that kind of thing. Yeah, so you're not unique. It actually goes across the spectrum of the entire population. 12. If I were a hybrid living on Earth, would I always necessarily know I am a hybrid, or is this only true for some? So all hybrids know they are hybrids. And the reason for that, they're actually called on to do very specific things here on Earth. And they know they have the capability and the very broad direct communications with many extraterrestrial groups. So in a funny way, it's like the old adage, if you have to ask, the answer is no, you're not. But all hybrids understand they are hybrids. Now, it's all be revealed as part of full disclosure who are hybrids. But rule number 1, when you are hybrid, you're not allowed to disclose it because that gets in the way of the productive effort, the things we're trying to accomplish down here. 11, with the concept of Earth being a school, a laboratory, and humans learning with each lifetime, is there ever an end to the cycle of learning in a sense of final graduation? No, the soul's growth is infinite, just like the universe, and you have the choice to continue on, to stop, to take a respite. But no, there's no real end point. I know people, that's kind of a human concept, but souls are infinite. It can never, their energy, in a sense, can never be created or destroyed. It goes on for infinity. 10. Years ago, walking my dog a mile or so deep into the woods, we came upon white feathers along the trail. They lead us to a large pile of hundreds of dead white geese. Their bodies were piled in a heap about 4 to 5 feet wide and 3 to 4 feet tall. Their poor, limp bodies were pristine and beautiful with no signs of blood. Many of the geese I saw had a very clean, straight incision in their chest. It felt to me very calm and dreamlike. I wasn't afraid nor curious, just sad. This happened again a couple of years later, close to the same spot. Though with not as many geese, what was this? This actually appears to be a biological harvesting event for some extraterrestrial species. So biological harvesting goes on this planet. It's the same thing that happens with cattle mutilations, but very characteristic of very highly precise incisions. They're laser-derived incisions, lack of blood, loss of blood. This is about biological harvesting. It's been going on for millions of years. 9. As we head toward raising our consciousness worldwide, some things are happening. My daughters and I were on a camping trip. The last night we experienced a phenomenon, a shuffling sound, lights, and a clicking sound, even an out-of-body experience. Since then, my eldest daughter and I have started to recall experiences from our childhood. It seems to me that more and more of humanity are experiencing or waking up to what we are capable of in this life. Is this part of the 3-decade reset? Will more stories like ours come out and be spoken of in public? Yes, this is all part of the 3-decade reset, the veil becoming thinner. As the veil becomes thinner, you can easily see other dimensions, the Akashic records, talk to guides and angels. It's all part of a gradual progression. It's important. This is a progression. I think people have an understanding sometimes. There's a flash of light, and then everybody's immediately goes into 5D or something. No, it's a progression. We're all going through a very gradual state of progressively understanding what the universe is all about, and the veil's becoming thinner. 8. I have visited different psychics throughout the years with different friends, and friends are generally very happy with their readings, stating in part how accurate their readings are with the psychics they talk to. And I am always very disappointed, disillusioned. They are frequently incorrect relative to my jobs, relationships, children, etc. Are some people unreadable by psychics, or are others, or are there other reasons for this? So in many cases, it's interesting, when you don't receive clear psychic readings, there's a message there for you. Many times the message is you are supposed to develop the skills yourself and read yourself. Now, it's interesting, a lot of people that come down to earth with great psychic mediumship abilities don't always put it into practice. And they constantly, I see this all the time, look to others for answers. And, when repeatedly, like you have a life experience, you constantly or consistently are, let's see, you feel like you're misdirected, you don't get the right information, you're disappointed. Take a step back. That's like a signpost along the way. And in this case, I'm telling you, whoever asked this question, you are meant to develop the skills on your own. That disappointment is supposed to drive you towards developing the skills on your own. So congratulations, you actually, in an interesting way, have more ability than the people that you're going to get answers from, okay? 7, the destruction of our White House took my breath away. This is a historical building and it can't be replaced. Will anything be done to stop this with any repercussions? Not in the short term. The demolitions are going to continue, but it'll eventually be corrected, right? So things will come to a stall and things will be corrected. It's a very interesting case that's going on right now. 6, hello Sterling. I love that extraterrestrials installed the moon and is used as a way station for many ET groups. Did NASA already know about the history of the moon before they landed on it, or were they encouraged, aided by ETs to attempt this trip to the moon? NASA already understood completely what the moon was all about. There's been many extraterrestrial visits to presidents, to various groups, scientists. They actually understood what the moon was all about, and they've been prepped for it for a long time, even before they made the initial travels, the initial voyages. 5. Do you see Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution being invoked, which calls for the impeachment, removal of the whole regime if high crimes and misdemeanors, treason, etc., are proven? Yes, this will all be part of the process that will bring down the 45 regime and all the people that are involved directly connected with 45 in the administration. It'll take a while for it all pan out and play out to all the individual groups, but yes, this will be a part of it. 4. If 45 and EM are sabotaging government voting systems and software programs, well, we have to start over from scratch so offshore entities like Russia will not have encrypted backdoor access to our voting systems. Yes, as we talked about earlier in the show here, all these voting systems will be cross-checked. And yeah, there will actually be a redevelopment of new voting technology because there's some encrypted malware that, for example, is on motherboards that when these systems were developed and designed and produced, there's encrypted malware there contained in firmware that gets activated. So a lot of this is going to be there's a lot of process going on here to not only double audit the system, but then create new hardware. So in a sense, there will be some starting over as we kind of roll all this out. Number 3, number 2, and number 1. I always take notes before we start these shows, so I'll read those back to you right now. Number 3, do your ET friends have anything they want to share with us today? Keep the faith that we are assisting in every way possible in light of the stupidity of many leaders in the world. We will prevent them from harming the world at large. Number 2, what do you see coming up next week? A new raid on congressional residences and offices for document searches dealing with the 45 administrations, meaning new charges being developed by the 45 administration on officials. New peace talks and ceasefire talks in the Middle East continuing to be led by the Qatari government. New trade talks in Asia and China that will prove to be unproductive. New storm activity in the east coast of the U.S. that appears to pass on by without great damages to the east coast. New earthquake activity in the Philippines area of the world. Strong thunderstorms in Asia with major water events coming. More fallout for 45 and many people in politics from the Nobody's Girl book released from last week. And number 1 in the countdown. Do you have anything your guides want to share? Take time out for yourself this week and make sure you approach all of life's situations with a balanced approach. When you approach life with high levels of stress, you make decisions that you will regret later. On that note, that concludes the show being recorded today on Saturday, the 25th of October, 2025, released to all media platforms on Sunday, October 26, 2025. As a quick footnote, I'm doing a show with Linda G., the Comanche Psychic, on Sunday, October 26, 2025. That will be on Linda G., the Comanche Psychic YouTube channel. On that note, I'm going to send out a lot of goodwill and tremendous love to you and your families. Take care. I will see you all again very soon.